she armed?
No, but it's not about her being armed. It's about the hundreds of people behind her also trying to break in. And that's the last barrier to our Congress people, the most important people in the country.
If Trump gets in, he'll settle in Ukraine. We'll be good with Putin again.
What do you think about the U.S. funding of Ukraine?
I do not support it. I think it's very immature spending. We are giving all this money away. That's why our taxpayer dollars are there.
Do you think Vladimir Putin is a threat to America?
So he could be here and there. What he uses a lot, Trump called it the N-word, nuclear.
Yeah.
Don't want to use that word.
Yeah.
And he uses it a lot, every day.
Yeah.
So when Trump was in, we were good with him. Biden got in, instantly went down.
Can I give you my view on Ukraine?
Yes.
So a lot of people think we're sending just a bunch of money, but about 70% of the aid we send is in the form of military equipment, a surplus military equipment that we would already be destroying soon anyways. So from my point of view, we get to send this equipment, we get to secure Ukraine's border, which, do you think Ukraine is our ally or?
So I think they're a good ally. They could be a very good ally.
Yeah.
And I think they'd be good in NATO. If they're in NATO right now, it'd be world war.
It'd be terrible, yeah.
It'd be really bad.
Sometimes it scares me when I see Russia going back to like a World War II style invasion of trying to take over your next door neighbor, annexing that territory for yourself and trying to declare it Russia. So I think it's almost in our best interest to send this military equipment, because if you think about it, we've sent $75 billion, which sounds like a lot, but our military budget, our defense budget is like $1 billion a year roughly. So in the past 2 years, we've sent like 5% a year. So I feel like this 5% is a great return on investment. We get to stop Vladimir Putin in his tracks.
Yeah. And this is him, Vladimir Putin. And why he's doing this is back in the day, that used to be Russia.
Yeah.
That used to be Russia, but
in 1991, when the Soviet Union dissolved, all the countries across the world, including Russia, recognized the sovereign borders of Ukraine. And now it's just scary to see him go back on that. It's like he doesn't care about international law. He doesn't care about preserving borders. He just wants to restore the Russian Empire, essentially.
he's basically the biggest dictator you can imagine.
Exactly.
Besides Xi Jinping, but they're both bad.
So could you see the argument that if we stop him now in his tracks, then we set the precedent for people like Xi Jinping, people like Vladimir Putin, that you can't just invade next door neighbors? So I get the argument that we're sending a lot of money, but you get my argument where I'm coming from. It's good to stop dictators. Like, you think about the World War II in 1939, when people invaded Poland, or when Hitler invaded Poland, everyone was like, oh, he won't march on, he won't go on, let's just leave him be. He did march on, and then it cost us actual American lives.
It did cost us numerous lives.
Yeah. So that's just my point of view on Ukraine, where it's like, it's expensive for sure, but I almost feel like the return on investment from this small 5% of our military budget every year kind of is worth it.
It is. Yeah. And they're going to be a good ally. We're going to stop Russia.
Yeah.
They're this close to being done.
Yeah. You guys think there should be a national holiday to vote? Do you think that's a good idea for Americans to be able to like take the day off work and go get out to vote?
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah.
Get it
and
over
I
with
think
in one fell swoop.
right, and I think you should and you should present your ID.
I do.
Present your ID.
They
and
make
vote,
it sound
right.
like ID is so hard to get.
Yeah.
I took my 87-year-old mother to the driver's license place and got her a no driving driver's license so that she could go out to a wedding.
Everybody can get their ID, and it needs to be showing your ID to vote. That's how it used to be. None of this mail-in ballot thing. That's ridiculous, and that's how fraud happens.
Mail-in ballot started for the military.
When you think about election fraud in the context of 2020, what do you think the strongest piece of evidence for election fraud is? Because a lot of people on the left will say that the election wasn't stolen, right?
Well, they're brainwashed.
Joe Biden won one state by more votes than there were people. Mm-hmm. Like, how's that possible? And I mean, you see in Democratic states alone, ballot stuffing.
There's an awful lot of dead people on the ballots. The
Yeah.
people that move and don't,
My concern with that is when you look at, we were in Georgia covering a rally, so we did a bunch of research on this. And when they took all this stuff to court, even like Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, I think the number of dead voters they thought there were like 10, 20,000. But then when they actually checked it, they triple checked it, they did a forensic audit, it was like 3 people, like 3 dead voters or whatever. And then you see this pattern where every time Trump brought evidence to different courts, the court said, there's not enough evidence here, man. Over 60 court cases. And then people around him, like you can look at Mike Pence, Bill Barr, Mark Meadows, they all said there's not enough evidence. So when you think about all of this context, does that ever make you worry that Trump might
No, because you know what? Like, you can, okay, so I can state my opinion and say, okay, I feel that the election was stolen. That doesn't mean anything. Okay, so the election was stolen, or that you feel that way. That's not, you're not going out there causing an insurrection because you feel like the election was stolen. I mean, that's his opinion. And if he feels that way, okay, fine, then he feels that way. It is what it is, and it doesn't matter anymore if the election was stolen or not. We have to move forward.
Yeah.
Like, what's done is done. The election was stolen how many years ago? Okay, so it's stolen. All right, well, it's done and over with. Like, keep moving forward. We can't think about the past anymore. And that's our problem. We think about the past too much, and we dwell on it.
We gotta look forward.
We got to look forward. The past is the past. It's over and done with. What happened. We got to move forward. We got to, as Americans, we got to stop looking back and dwelling on those things and arguing. And then in the Republican Party, then we start arguments amongst ourselves. Like,
On January 6th, do you think that Mike Pence should have stopped that peaceful transfer of power, which has been the precedent for all of American history, or do you think he upheld his duty?
It wouldn't hurt to do a recount.
They did a lot of recounts, and they did all of these they brought it to courts. Trump did all of the legal pathways. That's where the insurrection argument comes in, is because then he found John Eastman, the lawyer, and they came up with this theory that Mike Pence could just flip the results on his own, unilaterally. And that's not something we would want, like, Kamala Harris to do, right? We don't want the vice president to be able to decide. So I think by him upholding the precedent, I feel like it almost helps the Constitution, right?
Yeah.
Right, I see that, but we didn't cause an insurrection. Like, if you look at the January 6th tapes, those people were peaceful. They were allowed in. They were allowed in. They were escorted in, shown around, like all that stuff.
They talk about people being killed. Only one killed was Ashley Babbitt by a sergeant or some policeman in the Capitol policeman.
Do you think that was justified?
No.
Really? See,
She was peacefully standing outside. There were other people banging on the window, and that cop just shot her. She did nothing.
There is a video of her trying to, like, jump through the window, and that was the last barrier between her and the Congress people, right? So sometimes when I see that video, I feel like, I don't know if she should have gotten shot, but I feel like she was told repeatedly, like, stay back, and then she kept trying to go through. And
Stay back is not reason to kill.
Well,
It's a life and death
Was she
situation.
armed?
No, but it's not about her being armed. It's about the hundreds of people behind her also trying to break in. And that's the last barrier to our Congress people, the most important people in the country.
No.
But it's not just about her. It's about the people behind her as well.
Then shoot them.
Yeah.
Shoot the right people.
Yeah.
And then they start saying that they were responsible for killing the guy that died of a heart attack the next day.
All that.
And then there was want to lie about what happened that day.
And there was FBI agents in the crowd. It was already proven. January 6th was proven already to be a farce.
When I look at January 6th, last question, then I'll leave you guys to go.
That's fine.
I just feel like you can almost draw a direct line from Donald Trump's rhetoric leading up to the election, after the election, saying everything was stolen, everybody's against you. Then he holds a rally at the Ellipse, which is walking distance from the Capitol.
Yeah.
Then he has all of these people here at the Ellipse, and they all walk to the Capitol, and not all of them were violent. I can absolutely give you that. But I also think
most of them weren't.
I also think if you look at a lot of the BLM protests, there were millions of people out there.
Look what BLM did. They burned down like billions of dollars worth of stuff, but nothing happened to them.
I didn't see anybody walk through the Capitol destroying anything. Mm-hmm. They were peaceful.
They did break windows to get in multiple times. There were multiple breach points, and I almost feel like
inside they didn't do any harm. They just broke some outside windows to get in.
Yeah, but the harm they were doing, like from a broad level, is interrupting the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in American history.
I don't
think.
Yeah, and I don't.
The peaceful transfer of power never been.
I just don't think January 6th was as big as a thing as we're making it. And by the way, look what BLM did, burning down and costing us billions of dollars, killing people, all this other stuff. But did we do anything about that? Is anybody sitting in prison for BLM? No, they're not.
A lot of people got arrested, but it's different because seditious conspiracy and all of these plots to basically stop Mike Pence from certifying the election results. I love democracy. I love freedom. I think that was harmful to our democracy and our Constitution. Do you see where I'm coming from, at least, when I look at some of this stuff happening?
I do a little bit see where you're coming from.
I'm just trying to bridge the divide.
And I get it. Debate's
when you're
fine.
blocking the streets and burning firehouses down and police stations down, you're interfering with the peaceful existence of the American. This is very peaceful. It's mostly peaceful.
Yeah, January 6th.
I do think so. When you look at BLM, there were millions of people protesting across the country, and a lot of the clips we see are just groups of like these small groups of like a few hundred people. So you can almost take that same model on the January 6th, where most people there are peaceful. Yes, I think the BLM was the same way, but that small group of rowdy people kind of ruined that peacefulness for the rest.
Right.
Some of the overhead videos that I see don't see a small group of people.
Yeah,
I see mobs of people
mobs,
running
BLM.
down the streets.
Right.
I'm from Philadelphia originally, and I saw them running down the streets, breaking windows, stealing from stores. What makes me really pissed is there's a black community at 42nd and Market. And these people worked hard to get their businesses up and running, and they smashed those stores. Those people lost their businesses.
I thought that was gross, yeah.
I think the whole thing is before this LGBTQ, like if you look at the percentages, like gay people getting married and rights, we were fine with that. We don't care about that. But when you start rallies, when you start indoctrinating our children, when you let children get, hormone therapies at 8 years old, and then you bring these books into our schools and stuff like that, stay in your lane.
It's gone over.
It's gone too far.
I don't know if people are getting hormone therapy at 8 years old. I think the process is after like 4 or 5 years of, you can look into the statistics. So usually how it works is you take 4 or 5 years of therapy and you go to a doctor, and then when you're about 16 or 17. So do you guys have kids?
Yeah, I have 2 4-year-olds,
Okay,
girls.
so if you're taking your kid to the doctor and a therapist and all of and you and your partner.
I wouldn't work. I wouldn't be for that.
Really? So
No.
I'm just saying you and your partner, this could be with anything. This could be ADHD. So you take them and they get diagnosed with X or Y. Do you think the government should be able to step in and stop that treatment from happening?
Yes, transfer. Yes, I think.
Really?
Yes, I do not think children, and they are getting it as young as 10 and 12 years old.
I don't think so. Usually what happens are like puberty blockers or hormone stoppers.
Yeah, right there, puberty blockers. Right there, you just said it. Puberty blockers at 10 and 12 years old.
The problem is when you look at, do you guys know who Matt Walsh is?
I do,
He
yeah,
went on the
Matt
Joe
Walsh.
Rogan podcast and he made a whole documentary about this stuff. And he was saying millions of kids are on
is a
puberty
woman?
blockers. Yeah, so he was saying millions and millions of kids are on puberty blockers. And when they fact checked him, it was like 700 people that are like 16 years old. And if you want to get puberty blockers at 16, that only happens after 4 or 5 years of therapy, after a board of doctors say that it's okay. And from my opinion, I don't think the government should be able to step in and stop any sort of treatment. Because for conservatives should be for limited government, essentially. The government should be able to step in and tell you what you can do or what you can do with your kid.
Right.
So can I ask you guys, do you think Vladimir Putin is our enemy?
No,
Really?
no,
Really?
No.
That's
I don't
surprising.
think.
no, I don't.
No, I think he has his own agenda.
Right. No, I don't think he's
So
our
do you guys think he was justified in invading Ukraine and trying to annex
Yes.
that territory? Why?
Yes, I do. Because first of all, he warned us. He warned us how many times? Do not join NATO. Like, do not cross this line. Like, don't cross it. And they just kept pushing and pushing. And I think America had a lot to do with it. America had a lot to starting the war. And I think, I don't think Putin's our enemy. I don't. I don't think he wants to take over America or anything like that. I mean, if you look at the Tucker Carlson interview with Putin, but Putin is very smart, very smart. And do you think our president could go back to the 1800s and recite our history in the 1800s? No, he couldn't, and not a lot of presidents could. Putin knows his stuff.
I think, unfortunately, he sees Ukraine as his territory. Because of the history. And the country has been up and down with who's been in power in the Ukraine. And it's a beautiful country. There's beautiful architecture and everything like that. And he sees it being destroyed. So he wants to do something about it.
And
I don't
Zelensky?
like...
Yeah.
Can I give you my point of view on Ukraine?
Sure.
So basically, in 1991, when the Soviet Union dissolved, Ukraine's borders were recognized by every nation across the world, including Russia. When they signed the Budapest Memorandum, they said that Ukraine is now a sovereign nation. And now it's been a sovereign nation for 30 years. Vladimir Putin has repeatedly tried to show imperialist ambitions. He invaded Georgia, invaded Crimea. So sometimes I don't buy the argument that NATO expansion is the reason that Vladimir Putin took over. I just think he wants to restore the former Soviet Empire, and he does that through this World War II style, World War II-esque invading of
that.
next door neighbors. So when I look at our funding of it, we're not just sending money. We're sending like about 70% of the aid we send is like a surplus military equipment that we already have stockpiled.
Right, but we need it ourselves. I don't think we should have any funding for Ukraine. We don't.
None at all? We just
none.
leave them to Vladimir Putin totally?
You know what? That's none of our business. Look what's going on with our borders. Look what's going on with our country.
I don't mind helping with arms and things like that.
Yeah.
But Biden slow walked getting them the aid in the beginning.
Yep.
And that caused it to escalate more than it needed to. So, I mean, he screwed it up in the first place.
If he would have been stronger right off the bat, you think they would have?
He's not strong on anything. He can't even walk.
But now it almost feels like in Congress, it feels like Mike Johnson, if you've been following that, he's sort of been dangling the aid above. And now Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to oust him for sending the Ukraine.
Republicans,
I don't think
the
we should send
Republicans
Ukraine to
don't
Ukraine.
have a strong leader. They need to. That's why Trump needs to come in and pull it together again. I mean, you need strong leadership.
I don't think any money should go to Ukraine. Personally, no.
Part of the problem with unfortunately, and people aren't going to like this one. But
I think over there. Are this your guys'?
That's my truck.
That's his.
That's a man car.
So can I, sorry, I'm just asking probing questions because that's my job.
That's fine.
So when I think of the idea of just like leaving Ukraine to the wolves and basically letting Putin take it, I feel like the precedent that sets for people like Xi Jinping, who right now is eyeing Taiwan, and he's looking at America. So America's supposed to be a world leader. We're supposed to be like we're probably the strongest.
all taking advantage because Biden is weak.
Because Biden is weak. If we have another president, listen, in November it's all going to change.
Yeah.
Like in November it's all going to change. And the whole thing with Ukraine is we've sent how much, they're not going to win. Ukraine is not going to win.
Well, Russia did say, Vladimir Putin said they would be to Kyiv in 3 days, and that was over 2 years ago. So it's not like Putin's winning either.
They're in a deadlock. Ukraine is not going to win. Fundamentally, they're not going to win. They don't have enough people. They don't have enough power, and now they're making people join the war because they killed all their soldiers. Ukraine will never win. This is going to be an ongoing war that Ukraine will never win. Russia is stronger than Ukraine. The Ukraine's never going to win.
But they're not as strong as they thought they were. They thought they were going to be there in like 3 days.
They might have been. Okay, fine, but they're not going to.
They've been set on their heels. But the problem I have with funding to Ukraine, giving weapons and things like that is one thing, but giving cash is another.
Yeah,
because every one of the people in the Senate and stuff like that go over there to get their hand out.
When we look at the war in Afghanistan, we spent trillions of dollars over there, and we got no return on that investment.
Well,
and
we're
if,
close there.
and if you look at the
Was bad.
if you look at our $900 billion military budget every year, it almost seems like sending 5% of that over in the form of military equipment, in the form of aid, is a really good return on investment. I know you guys don't think Vladimir Putin's an immediate enemy, but I do think, like, can you guys see the argument where if we just let Ukraine be taken, then Xi Jinping will be like, oh, America doesn't care, we can just go grab Taiwan now. And
I don't think we should let it be taken, but I don't think we should be giving money. We don't have the money to be giving them. We don't have it. Like, we're trillions of dollars in deficit, and we want to send another 60 billion over there. We don't have it.